Hello, listeners of the Art Versations podcast.
Hi. My name is. Hi. My name is Broadway Classic.
Let's hear it.
Welcome to the Art Versations podcast, the 2021 edition. Happy New Year to all. Happy in whatever sense that means to you. I hope we will all find a way to get back to a normal life. Sans pandemic. I am your host, Bri, like the cheese, and I created this podcast a couple years ago to help keep the conversation surrounding the arts alive. Little did I know there would be a virus that would affect every single artist's way of creating. So thank you for clicking on the show. Let's save the arts. If this is your first tune in, it is lovely to have you and have your ears as a part of this community. Please consider subscribing or following this podcast to receive updates of new episodes. Art Versations would not be made without the support of you, listener, and any feedback or thoughts you might have while listening is always welcome. You can DM me on the podcast in Instagram at artversationspod. Go and give it a follow and tell your friends. Okay, enough shameless plugging. Let's get to this week's episode, the first 2021 episode. We are starting the new year with my next guest, Wesley Tang. He is a dancewear and dance costume designer and founder of Wesley Tang Designs, which is going into its 6th year. Very exciting. I sat down with him over Zoom to hear about his unique perspective as a dancer turned costumer, and we even got into a few costume secrets along the way. I've always been interested in picking his brain, and I think you'll really enjoy his energy. Join us for an hour with whatever New Year's resolutions you're working on at the moment. Here is episode 14 of season 3. I mean, you don't want to have a costume malfunction on stage, which has happened to me before.
That is very true. I have seen many of those in my day.
I'm sure you have. Hi, Wesley.
Hi, Brianna.
How are you doing in this current moment in time?
I'm doing great. I mean, still alive, so, that's a positive.
Yes, still alive but barely breathing.
Always. But it's a good state to be in. It's a very exciting yet dangerous place to trek, I would say, but it's definitely interesting, to say the least, yeah.
And you're sitting in your new warehouse space at this moment.
I am, yes. Still under renovations, which it has been for at least about 5 months now.
Understandable.
But, it is still going, and we are going to get there soon, hopefully. But
it looks pretty big. Like, it looks very spacious, to have.
I'll definitely take you on a tour after this, but yes. It's about like 3,500 square feet, so it will do the job pretty well.
Mm-hmm. I imagine you have like different departments or different kind of places that you need to put, sewing or fittings or other different like departments around. So you need that space to do it, right?
Yeah. So basically, like the front. So I guess it's like pretty much split between front and back of the warehouse.
Okay.
And so the front is like a showroom-esque space where the first floor like has a reception area with like couches and stuff, so it's like kind of loungy and like living room-esque.
I love
to
that.
make it cozy. And then up the stairs from there's a mezzanine, and it basically has like a full kitchen, so that's like kind of the lunchroom, but it's like a more upscale lunchroom to say the least. And then also like the design office, and there's like a larger change room / bathroom there, so like when kids come for solo fittings and such, then that's kind of the place that they'll be. So
wonderful. So you said like 3 stories or 2 stories?
Yeah, 2 stories. Yeah. So I have 2 floors at the front for a little bit, and then I built a mezzanine at the back as well, just for my artist, because there was no floor space to put her on.
Wow, that's so cool. Like, you have your own space.
Yeah, it was such like a, I mean, we've kind of been planning this for a while. Like I would say I was looking for a space for about 8 to 9 months, like prior to when we purchased it back
Oh,
in
wow.
April. So,
Okay.
because of the area that we wanted to purchase in, like the Markham, like just like at the south border of Markham,
Mm.
um, very industrial, but not much for sale because there's a lot of places for lease. And so, pretty much in the time like that 8, 9 months that we were looking, we pretty much only saw 3 or 4 different properties in
Hmm.
our criteria at least.
Okay.
So it was a race to the finish to purchase
Mm-hmm.
space. Yeah.
And probably like a little bit of a competition, maybe
It
to.
actually was. So it came
Yeah.
out on a Friday, the listing, and we went to see it on a Saturday. And actually, before we put in our offer, another person had already put in their offer. So we had to basically move quickly, and it was like a multiple bid
Whoa,
situation. So, I
that is
mean,
stressful.
not always the most comforting to know that there's somebody else trying to vie for the space that you want, but
But you got
I
it.
guess they love you. We got it. So
Yeah. That's
meant to
so
be.
cool.
Yeah.
Like for you, like you're still so young, and to have already like a place that you can call your own, and to build a mezzanine, and to like just to like say that this is going to be where I can now create and make whatever I'd like, and almost facilitate the space to fit you and to cater your work. That's
Right.
amazing.
I mean, yeah, I've been definitely fortunate enough to find, I guess, a space that's A, big enough, and also B, something that I can kind of transform into, like, I guess, the workshop of my dreams, if you could put it that way. And I hope this is the first of many, but definitely like a really large milestone for me at this point. And I'm like completely grateful to all of my clients and like customers who have basically supported us over the years because without them, I would not be here. So, um, thank you to all of you who have enjoyed Wesley Tang Designs for the past 5 years. We're actually going on the 6th year this season. So, it's
Incredible.
kind of, it's been a while, but
Yeah.
it has seemed like I just started yesterday, which is the crazy thing about it. So, wow.
Wow, congratulations. Yeah, such a milestone. And I mean, yeah, you've garnered a big community of people who you work with and work for. And I was also really curious to hear about your perspective as, a lot of your clients are for competition dance. And right now, in this, world of COVID, I'm interested to hear, what is going on. Like, are you able to make costumes and produce as many as you did? Is it less? Is it more? I don't know. Like, what kind
I
of world
mean,
is
dance
that?
is very unpredictable at this point. So,
Yeah.
a lot of, I guess, the Ontario and local Canadian studios aren't really doing much just because of the unpredictability of like whether or not competitions are going to happen or in what sort
Mm-hmm.
of format. And also because since they all ordered costumes from last season, they're trying to reuse like as much as possible. So it's
Right.
kind of everybody I feel like is waiting till the last moment. So like obviously when the new year rolls around, hopefully there'll be a little bit more predictability, especially with the vaccine and all that's coming out. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully dance will get a little bit back on track, if we can put it that way. But
Yeah.
right now we're producing for a lot of American studios because I guess they're just a little bit more thick-skinned to put it. Um, I guess like blatantly, but
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of American studios are still going forth with costuming. So I
Mm.
mean, business as usual for them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's good to hear then, because yeah, I was wondering. I was like, so wait, competitions aren't really happening, and and if they do, it's maybe just like a solo costume or a duet
right,
costume. Like, we're used to these big group numbers, or just like the huge quantity of you know producing costumes because you have so many clients and you have so many students. Like I don't know. I was also like worried, because as someone who's grown up in competition dance as well, like so
yeah,
many of the backstage people or the designers in dance in general have been out of jobs.
right.
It's so
I
sad.
mean, I think just COVID has really taken a toll on arts in general, right? Like not
Yes.
only just dance, but theater and every sort of performing arts because um the like unavailability to have a crowd, right, is kind of
Right.
what supports the arts and is what garners money for like ticket sales and such, right? So it's hard because even though I guess dancers and artists are still practicing, not being able to perform is also something like quite detrimental, right? To not be
Mm-hmm.
able to share their craft and kind of express like the emotions that they might have bottled inside of them, or
Mm-hmm.
just like the stage is their home, right? So they need that outlet to kind of be free or be able to express themselves in the best way that they know how to, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
um, definitely a hard time, I think, for artists in general, just because the outlet has basically been completely cut off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's tough. I
Yeah.
don't know how you guys do it, honestly. So
Well, currently I'm not doing much, but yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, because you also, you know that feeling of the stage is your home, and not being able to share and tell stories.
right.
It's sad, but it hopefully maybe it'll turn more into some digital things happening, or because then at least then we can, you know,
Right.
still
Still be
ask.
sharing, but in a
Yeah.
different format. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, in terms of too, like, safety when you are working, um, what kind of protocols do you maintain within your fittings or what your design meetings?
Well, normally, because most of our clients are American clients, like pretty
Oh,
much
true.
there's no fittings, right? So
Okay.
everything's just based upon measurements and then it's shipped to their studios in the States. So
Hmm.
um, because of that, I guess it really mitigates the fact that like there's any in-person contact. So
Hmm.
that's why it's still pretty much business as usual in that sense, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
but otherwise, like here, all the staff pretty much like have to wear masks and just they're pretty much all in their own separate like workstation. So they're never really more than 2 feet like in distance from each other. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's not like a huge risk, especially because I have a bigger space now. Like it definitely helps with that as well to mitigate and have the space to kind of spread out a little bit further than we used to. So
Yeah, yeah. And how many people are on your team?
right now about 4 to 5. So some of them
Okay,
are
so a
part
small number.
time, but in general, yeah, 4 to 5.
That's good, yeah. So that you're not like, having to deal with a big crowd and then some people can come in, some people can't. Like, that's good. It's a small team.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
I think it's like a perfect size for what we need to accomplish. And then we just, whenever it's usually busy, it's just overtime. But,
Mm.
that's part of the fun, I guess.
I have such vivid memories of going to my seamstresses when I was younger and to their, like their workspace and just costumes everywhere, fabrics everywhere, right? And they were always so pressed for time. Like there was never enough time to do anything, even if it was like a 4 month process of doing something. I
Right.
mean, I wonder too, like how do you manage the stress of trying to fit someone into a costume or a design?
I mean, it really all comes down to my handy Excel spreadsheet. It
Yeah.
is my master list of all my clientele, every single style that they order, like the quantities, and then pretty much whenever something gets processed, the patterns are finished, or
Mm-hmm.
patterns have been cut, or the costumes have been sewn and not fit yet. Like pretty much everything is color coded, and I know
Nice.
where everything is pretty much at every step of the process. So um, it's pretty much just like balancing deadlines. Like also my trusty phone, Google Calendar, it never fails. So I mean, I've yet to miss an appointment, so it has definitely helped. It's just pretty much you have to stay on top of it and organized so that you know when everything that needs to be done is done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much a balancing act, but I've somehow figured it out for the past couple of years.
Yeah, I can't imagine like just
So,
so much stress and also too like if something I remember when I would get fitted, if something didn't quite fit right, sometimes that would mean that you would have to start over.
hmm.
Or if it
Um,
wasn't sewn properly or something, you know what I mean?
yes, I guess in most cases, thankfully, because I know how I guess the whole process works, especially being like a design school student in my
Mm-hmm.
past, you have to pretty much learn everything, right? So I'm not just a designer that has the vision and then somebody else creates the pattern for me. I pretty much envision the design and then I pattern it myself. So when the seamstresses have a problem or the cutters have a problem about what fabrics to choose or like what is being cut where, whatever, I can pretty much guide them because I already like have the blueprints to this whole process, right? So obviously that means that I'm running around all day, but at least like it gives me, I guess, a little bit more control in the sense where like it's easier for me to just solve the problem. Like that's why I'm normally always around because yes, I know a lot of business owners will say, yes, I can just leave, whatever, but I don't have, I guess, enough confidence that if I'm not there, things will run as smoothly as I'd like to. Just because I am quite a control freak in a certain aspect, right? So it's just the certain aspect of, I guess, perfection. Obviously, there's no such thing as perfect, but as best as possible that I can do, I would like it done the way that I want it to be done. So it just works out in my favor to be there as often as possible, right? So
yeah, I mean, that's your right as the owner of Wesley Tang Designs. Like, you know, I know exactly what you mean, like control freak, but also in a sense that, you know, you have a vision and you have a very clear vision, I might add. I was looking on your website and I absolutely love the tagline that you have is simplicity, subtlety, sophistication. Yes. I thought that was really, really well done and shows me exactly, you know, if I'm interested in, you know, booking you for a design or something, I'm thinking, okay, great. I know exactly where his vision is. I know what I'm looking for. It's clear. It's, you know, simple, 3 words. That's all you really need, right? So I just wanted to mention that as something really
I just
clear.
think, especially being like part of the dance world in my previous life, let's put it that way, it's just given me a little bit more perspective, right? In terms of like what dancers are looking for, like different styles. You kind of just pick up on little nuances that I think some seamstresses don't necessarily understand because they've never been in that sort of situation or that world. Like it's just an interesting viewpoint to even like when I used to get costumes made, like to have that experience of being fitted by somebody else and then now me fitting somebody like a student or a dancer or one of our clients, you just have to like keep in mind like that they're also sort of experiencing that same sort of like moment in time that you once were. And in my view, like figuring out ways how to elevate the experience, right? And make sure that the girls or boys rather always feel comfortable and you're giving them the best service you can, even though you might be having a shitty day. Like you have to remember that like at the end of the day, I know you probably feel this too, but getting a costume is like getting something made for yourself. Like it's like such a dreamy process, right? So
it really is.
Try to like, I guess, elevate and make that experience the best possible one it can be is kind of the goal that I've set out to when I started, and pretty much just trying to be, not to be like cocky or anything, but try to be like the best that I can be, right? Because I know what's out there, I know the standards that are out there, so it's easier for me to find ways to improve and kind of like excel at what I do, right? So
because you've had that prior experience, you know what it feels like.
Yeah, so it's just about finding those like little details, right? It always comes down to like the feeling or like the sort of like grace and gratitude that you are like providing your customers, or just like little nuances like that. And I try my best to be as excited and I guess, I don't know how to say it, but basically excited about every single costume that I create for every single girl, because I know just how special of an experience that I want to also provide the girls, right? Because this could be like a moment in time, like this could be the only moment in time where they're getting something made custom for them, right? Because a lot of times when we get older, we don't really do a lot of custom things. So this sort of experience is something that they'll hopefully carry with them for the rest of their lives. And I actually had one client talk to me about the experience that I guess little girls get when they try on their costumes for the first time, right? Like it's sort of that experience where they feel beautiful, right? Like
Yeah.
something is being made for them. It's all about them, right? So having that focus put on them kind of like instills this confidence in them that they can carry on for the rest of their lives, right? And sometimes it's just a simple like an extra glitter on a costume, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
something that like will help like brighten up somebody's day or just like provide a little bit more sparkle to somebody's life. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that process because um, I know how special it felt for me to like be fitted in costumes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of just reciprocating that for the next generation. So
Yeah, that's so true. And I appreciate, as a dancer myself, that you focus a lot on the performer, on the person who's being fitted. I mean, if something feels tailored to me, immediately I feel like I'm not just like wearing the clothes, but that I like am living in them. And if I'm playing a character or something, there's so much more. There's an easy access to that personality or to those qualities in that character if I'm wearing the clothes and they don't just like fall off of me or don't sit right. They really do like um, uh,
yeah, just fit,
fit.
right? Like they just
Exactly.
are molded to you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I think
Yeah.
we definitely focus a lot on fit just because I know a lot of costumes that I've had made in the past that don't fit very well. And
Mm.
not to say that I necessarily feel, honestly, I would say I would feel a little bit frumpy, but that kind of
Yep.
just like translated into my performance. But
Yeah.
even if it was part of it or not, right? So,
Yeah.
um, just even understanding the fact that like fit can play such a huge role in like how a dancer feels and how they can emote on stage afterwards. Like, if like as a dancer when I used to dance, like if I felt good, then I knew my performance was going to be good because like
Yeah.
that inner sort of like spirit would come out because of I guess the mentality that I was like partaking in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um we really try our best to fit the costume to a T to the best ability that we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's really all about the dancer, right? Like we're here for the dancer to make sure that they feel good on stage, and that at the end of the day, it's not the costume isn't something that hinders them. It's something that like actually helps them and helps them grow and also elevates their performance. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you don't want to have a costume malfunction on stage, which has happened to me
that
before.
is very true. Well, yeah. I
One
have
time,
seen many of those in my
yeah,
day.
I'm sure you have. One time I was on stage and my pants were just too tight. They were so tight, and they ended up ripping,
Oh
and
no.
and it was a very serious piece, like very, like I should not be laughing at all, but it happened at the beginning of the piece that I was dancing, and I just couldn't come back to my present state. I just kept laughing the whole show, and then like that whole piece is ruined. Like it is so much about what you're wearing and how you feel and how it moves with you, like in terms of fabric. One of my favorite fabrics is like the sheer like skirt that like
Mhm.
moves with you. I don't know what it's called and like
Probably a chiffon skirt.
cool. Thank you. Professional advice is great. But like it controls movement. It visualizes movement and I yeah, I just it's really important, I guess is what I'm trying
Mhm.
to say. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's important to me because like being able to create a costume is also being able to create and um, also bring to life a vision, right? The
Hmm.
choreographer always has a vision in the sense where they want to create this environment or this atmosphere, and their dancers are the tools that they're trying to use to like, I guess, bring the story to life, and the
Yeah.
costume just helps to further create that environment. And obviously, there's always, but any really amazing dancer can wear absolutely like a bra and crop top shorts,
Yep.
hair black, and they can perform the hell out of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in certain senses, like, and in most contexts, the costume really like helps to elevate and just helps to portray the story and the environment and just allows the viewer, right? Because not all of the viewers are going to be dancers and they're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to necessarily just appreciate the movement and the art for the art, right? They're coming to see the experience. So
Yeah, that's a good
it's
point
not
actually.
always like just for the dancers, but it's kind of making sure that the audience as a whole understands kind of what is being portrayed. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like if I'm a person in the audience who's never been to a dance show or like doesn't really understand it, I guess my immediate thought will be, well, what are they wearing? Or the colors too. Like I feel like color schemes are super important, especially like with lights and things like that, you know? Yeah. There's so
Yeah, and
many
like
different
creating
aspects.
illusions through costumes, right? Like
Yeah.
different lines and different shapes and like qualities and textures as well. So costuming is definitely a fun job. It really is.
Apart from all the stress and running around. Do you ever wish you had like 8 arms?
I wish I had a twin that was
Yeah.
exactly like me. I mean, I've contemplated it all the time that because actually my mom's a twin, so
Oh,
I guess
good.
it would be hopeful that I could have ended up as a twin, but I guess sometimes it skips generations. So,
It would
yeah.
just be nice to, have extra hands, especially if
But
you're doing a lot
I'm
of
also glad to be like a one man running the show because I
Mm.
think even if I had any sort of partner, I think my personality is just the type where because I enjoy the control of being able to sort of envision the costume from start to finish. If I have any sort of other input, not necessarily to say that it's always like not going to be received, but most of the time I feel like I still follow my gut instinct in terms of like um, what sort of direction that I want to follow. And if I had somebody else, it would probably be more of a hindrance, honestly, than like a bonus, right? So
Yeah, yeah. You must be like really in love with the process.
I absolutely am. Yes.
Yeah.
Is a little bit not necessarily to say sad that this season I don't get to do it so much, but it definitely I do enjoy the hustle and bustle as much as it's very stressful. It's sort of that sort of like adrenaline that you get and just that creative spirit that you get during like a very like rushed yet um I guess nervous yet also um, compacted time frame. I think honestly that's probably where my best work comes because that's where you're the most creative because like all the juices are flowing at the right time and you're
Yep.
going with the flow yet figuring out new styles and just um, it's just working because the brain chemistry is figuring out its connections. So those
Yeah.
are some fun times for sure.
Maybe the spots that are so much, like you say, compacted and pressurized are where you make your best work or like make your most honest work or it kind of forces you, like you're saying, it forces you to really hanker down and like be in the zone
Right.
and the adrenaline is going and it's kind of, I guess, a rush too. Like,
Hmm.
yeah,
I mean, that's the thing with diamonds, right? They're made under pressure. So
I love that. They also are a
things
girl's
won't
best
sparkle
friend.
unless there's pressures.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm even thinking now that you reminded me of like the time sometimes it'll take to really craft out the details of like rhinestoning or sequins or appliques. Like one time I decided I was going to sew on my own appliques on my
Oh,
costume,
okay.
and I was like, oh yeah, it'll be super easy. Like it'll take me, half an hour
I've
maybe.
seen it done before. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, it's so fun. In and out, right? I was sitting there and it it almost took me 2 hours before I gave up. And I was like, I gave it over to my seamstress. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My hands hurt. My fingers are bleeding. Like all those little details, like they take human work.
Yeah.
They really take human hands and human energy and effort. And I feel like that goes unnoticed sometimes.
I mean, I'm sure it does, but I try to create like a process that's very uncomplicated, very easy. So all those small details, I just will figure out myself because I know how much pressure dance studio owners and choreographers are under anyway. So to kind of take that stress off their shoulders and um, I guess take a little bit of creative freedom in the sense of understanding their vision and hopefully bringing it to life in the way that they see fit, but under obviously my creative direction. So I've not really had any backlash when I decide to use my creative direction, because I guess I understand my clients well enough at this point that I just know where the style is supposed to be. Like I know what's going to work, and I know what the client's going to like at the end of the day. So I won't even suggest styles that I know that won't work, or, so understanding like also body types and just sort of like different sort of figures and how to flatter different figures, especially in a large group, right? How to flatter everybody equally, because sometimes there's sometimes that odd girl out, right? But to be able to find a design and to create a design that just makes everyone feel as beautiful as they're meant to feel is kind of the perk of it all. That's kind of like my pride and joy of like doing this job, is trying to make people feel beautiful, right? So
wow. Yeah. It's a big thing, I think, especially with younger dancers or younger artists, finding themselves and finding their bodies, and the more that you can be aware of the small things that have to change in the costume to make it just fit better, like we were saying, like the better fit, then they go on stage and they don't have to worry about feeling out of place or feeling like they're not the right size, even though there's everyone is the right size, but in that traditional sense, right? I definitely grew up struggling with that and body image, and knowing that if my costume designers were on my side, especially if I have to take off my clothes in front of them quickly or something like that, like being able to have a good relationship with them, and that just made everything better and made things so much more fun and enjoyable.
Absolutely. I think like when you bring up body positivity, like everybody in their own way is perfect. We just have these societal standards that tell us that we're not like as like perfect as what society has brought to light. And obviously that, I think, due to like social media culture and all that, like we've kind of bought into that a little bit more, just because like the sort of media that we're being like that is being put in front of our eyes is that content where we're supposed to feel like skinny is the best, or like certain types of body types are better than others. And everybody kind of goes through different stages, so it's not to discredit one stage or one form over the other, because honestly, you should do you. Like there's no better way to put it. Like you should feel comfortable in the skin that you feel comfortable in, and you shouldn't let anybody else tell you otherwise, because honestly, the people that end up telling you otherwise are ones that are pretty much insecure about themselves. So.
Totally. Yes. Thank you so much for saying that. Snaps for that. Body positivity and body liberation, like absolutely. Knowing that your body's going to change, and thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I think it needs to be said more. Let's switch gears a little bit, because I did want to hear about you were traveling a lot a couple years ago. I saw on your Instagram like story highlights. You've been to like Spain and Indonesia and Taiwan. Like how has that shaped your perspective on fashion or costuming or just different cultures in general? Like I'm so curious to hear.
I mean, I am honestly such a stickler for travel. I think it's just in terms of like when I do get time off, it's such like a nice way to reset and also find like different inspiration in different cultures, right? I love experiencing cultures because you kind of get to see how locals like do things that you would normally do, but in a totally different sense. And sometimes it makes you appreciate what you have and like the sort of lifestyle that you're living. And sometimes it just brings to life a completely new perspective and kind of changes the way that you think about something. And honestly, I think being able to travel is an absolute gift, but it teaches you different life lessons, right? Like to be able to plan a vacation, first of all, like that teaches you organizational skills in the sense where you can gather all of the sort of points of destination that you want to go to, and then being able to hit them all or kind of navigate along the way. And in the sense where you kind of have to figure out, go with the flow sometimes, yet follow the schedule. So it's also, I think, a life lesson, because you kind of get to figure out how to navigate yourself in a new and different space, right? Like a lot of times we are very much in a comfort zone, and travel kind of forces like yourself to break out of that, just because
Yeah.
the environment is completely different than what you might be used to in certain places. So
Totally.
um, it definitely is a huge source of inspiration, because just seeing different types of scenery and interacting with different types of people, and being able to hear people's stories, right? To see kind of where they're from, and also meet different travelers, is just a very eye-opening experience for sure.
Did you have a favorite place that you visited?
Um, there are a lot.
Yeah, I was
Last
gonna say.
summer I was in Morocco, and I really enjoyed that.
Wow.
It was definitely, for sure, like I went there wanting to absorb the culture, um, which was phenomenal. I think um, such a different point of view and such a different way of doing things, and uh, especially, well, okay, it was a little bit easier, I think, getting along there, because their second language is French, I believe, or maybe their national language is French. I don't remember,
I'm trying to
but
remember, yeah.
my trusty French skills from school still
Hey.
carried me through. So there's a huge bargaining culture there. So
Ah,
without the French, I think I would probably get ripped off most of the time, but I think I did decently well. Um,
cool.
that's only under my own impression, so I have no clue. But as long as I feel like I did well, I guess that's the goal.
Yeah, yeah. Did you bring back pieces, I guess, then, from the
I
sparkling?
did. So I was
Yeah.
actually going there with an intention of buying like a Moroccan lamp, or like a
Ooh,
chandelier sort of light fixture.
okay.
I did not find the right one, or it just was too overpriced for me to afford what I was going for. So I ended up picking up two rugs instead, that I didn't think I was going to be into, but I found two gorgeous rugs from two different cities in Morocco, and had them shipped home. So
Nice. Yeah, I was
yeah.
gonna say, did you fit them in your backpack? Probably not. Wow.
Yeah. Have you been on any travel recently?
I wish. The last place I've been, I mean, especially like COVID now is so limiting our abilities to travel. But the last place I went that was super enjoyable for me was Greece.
Mm.
And I was there for a month with Ryerson. They have like an exchange program. And I fell in love so much with like just the culture and the European friendliness and the food. Oh my God, the food was so delicious. And yeah, I had never been to Europe too, so this was my like first little taste of. I mean, I know Greece is a little bit more Eastern, but just having that first little taste of European culture, I'm like, I gotta go back. I gotta
Yeah,
go.
it's so addicting. You end up realizing how exciting it is to travel and to just
So
experience different types of food. Like, oh my God, I love food. Like,
right.
there's just like so many different um things to eat from just so many different cultures. It's like you can't get enough.
I
So
know. I'm so used to like city, fast food, like
yeah.
fake Thai Express. Like it's not even real. And I'm like, I need to go to these places and like dive into the indulgent of
I
food.
mean, we're very fortunate that we live in Toronto, because it's
That's true.
still one of the most multicultural cities, in the sense where the food is still like somewhat authentic.
Yes.
So
Hopefully.
I'm
Yeah.
sure in other cities you won't get nearly as authentic like style food that we do in the city. So definitely we're probably getting the end of the stick here, but definitely I think being also in a multicultural society also allows us to kind of see different perspectives from our own communities. And then if we end up traveling to those places, then it kind of like brings a renewed sort of perspective and more appreciation towards that community in our own, I guess, city. So
Yeah.
definitely eye opening.
Yeah. And just the way people dress and how different it can be depending on the weather, depending on how close they are to the equator, like it's just so. I think it shows you that there are so many different kinds of people and opening yourself up to learning from them or listening to their experiences changes the way you create and changes your perspective on art, or what kind of things you want to output, because it's just layered with new experiences and
I think travel
knowledge.
just like with the idea of perspective, it just allows you to broaden it, right? Like it
Yeah,
provides you more input so that when you are creating, you have more like pieces and more sort of parts to create from, right? So
totally.
just having that sort of vocabulary and that sort of, I guess, vault of ideas or different perspectives allows you to just pull from different places and kind of use that to be an impetus for your own work and your own creativity. Like,
Hmm.
um, so definitely the influx of different perspectives is definitely recommended for all, for sure. I think it's just um, having that openness like really allows you to really see things from a different light and be able to appreciate so many different sort of ways of life and also like methods of doing things and
Hmm.
like culture styles, et cetera, you know?
Yeah, it goes. It's so infinite. I guess it goes and goes and goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like, once we can travel again, in the way that we were, like, where do you want to go next?
Well, this past year I was planning to go to Thailand. Well, it
Oh,
was like on the plan. It never was booked, but
yeah,
normally
yeah.
I'm a pretty late booker. So
Okay.
the plan was definitely Thailand, but I want to explore a lot of Asia.
Hmm.
Obviously, the flights are long, but when you get there, it's a lot more inexpensive
Mm-hmm.
than Europe per se. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of Asian countries like Cambodia, Vietnam,
Mm.
Laos, um, Singapore, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so much to discover, so
So
little
much.
time.
Yes, I know. When you do have time with all your busy Excel spreadsheets and whatnot. Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Australia too, like, just to understand. It's such a small little island, like, compared to Canada's being so big, and wonder. I guess too, they I feel like they've organized the virus like really well, or they've tackled the virus
They
really well.
have, yes. I think it's mostly because they're not letting people in. I
Yeah,
could be wrong, but
something like that probably.
or they're just controlling the people that actually come in, so the virus isn't being spread by out of towners.
Hmm.
I could be completely incorrect. I'm just assuming.
I feel like that's right. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, because there's so much space between them and the rest of the world, I guess.
I mean, I know for sure in Taiwan's case, they're actually not allowing anybody that's not a citizen. So you can still get a
Okay.
visa if you, I guess, have a relative or have a certain reason to come into the country.
Hmm.
But when you do come into the country, it's a standard 14-day quarantine. And then they obviously, I'm sure, do some tests, but the quarantine period is not lax at all. Like you have to stay in the place that you've decided to quarantine. And um, obviously, this would never fly in Canada because of privacy laws and such, but they track
Hmm.
when if you do leave the place, they will send police or something like that to
Ooh.
ensure that you stay in place. And that's how they pretty much controlled the virus because um, they they literally live life as per usual, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Wow, I
But
didn't know
also
that.
the culture of wearing masks is something that
Yes.
they are accustomed to because of the air
Right.
quality. So obviously for Canadians, it was a very large shock, I would say, to start wearing masks because we're just not accustomed to having a face covering, right? So
Yeah, and it's almost kind of like the mask has become like the new graphic tee. Like, you can put designs, like whatever, however you want to express, yourself through these masks now. Like, I've seen like great masks where they're like, it's like Black Lives Matter, or like just having a message and having it be right next to your voice is kind of cool too. And
mm,
yeah, it was an adjustment for sure for me. I don't know how you felt about it, but yeah,
absolutely, it was the same.
it's
I mean,
hard.
when I first started wearing them, I felt like I was suffocating. But I
Yeah.
mean, you sort of get used to it. So
Uh-huh.
it just takes a certain adjustment period, and to know that you're not actually losing any sort of oxygen by wearing the face covering or face mask.
Yeah.
Like it, I guess it takes that sort of anxiety and that sort of I guess anxious sort of quality of like having something over your face and not being able to breathe. So once you've kind of like worn it for a while and are accustomed to it, then it's not really a problem. But I think that first initial idea of even like putting on a mask is a little bit daunting for us, just because it's not something that we're very familiar with. So,
and as a performer too, I'm like, half my face is covered, so I have to, you know, overperform with my eyes and my eyebrows, and like, and I've got bangs too, so it's like only my eyes are being seen. Like that was hard for me too, just to be covered by it. But I like I said, I think it's like a very big fashion statement right now, and can kind of become a part of our wardrobes and our everyday lifestyle. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how long we have to do this though.
Hopefully not so much longer, but you never know.
Yeah. I mean, maybe even, I don't know, this is so random, but like for competition dance, like, do you have to design a mask as a part of the costume?
I mean, I have yet to, but I'm sure it might happen sooner or later.
Wow. Like that's a huge thing, you know? Like that's a whole other required piece of clothing.
Accessory, or yes.
What's
like another hairpiece. It's like adding another accessory to the costume. So yeah.
You can do, I guess, maybe different things with it. I don't know, put like some doily around it or something. I don't know. Oh man, that's funny. I did want to ask you too, like what just as a human navigating COVID, like what was your quarantine like hobby, or like did you consume any Netflix shows that were great, or read any books, like anything at all?
Yes, I'm very much a huge Netflix consumer.
Nice.
So I definitely binged a lot of movies and TV shows. I think during the quarantine period, especially when it first happened, I would watch a movie every night.
Oh, good. So, wow.
Yes, I'm pretty serious. Now there's no more movies on Netflix that I watch because I've run out. But I did watch some of the series that I thought were really standout were Unorthodox.
Oh, okay. Yes, I saw that.
About like the Hasidic Jews, and it also brought a different perspective into a different culture and religion that I was not familiar with. So I think that cultural sort of aspect of her, I guess, breaking free into a different world is kind of a very like revolutionary sort of view on breaking out of the mold, right? Like it's kind of just understanding where your confines lie, and if you are strong enough to do something about it, then you will figure out a way to make it happen. So I feel like that sort of storyline really resonated with me, and that's why I quite enjoyed it. Recently, though, The Queen's Gambit.
Oh yeah, with Anna Taylor-Joy, I think her name is. Yeah.
Yes. That was amazing, and it's still been on like the top charts for a while. So I think people are really liking it. But I did pretty much finish that like 3 days after it came out.
Nice. I did that with The Crown. That was my like as soon as it came out, season 4. I binged the whole thing. I was like obsessed.
I've not gotten into that yet, but maybe soon.
I mean, it's kind of like it's historic fiction, right? So it's a little bit not really correct.
Yeah, accurate.
Yeah, but it's still really shot well, and yeah, I mean, Netflix is there when we need it, right? Like
it's dangerous. It very, very much is. Like for myself personally, when I don't watch a lot of series anymore, just because I'm quite excellent at binging. Like that's one of my talents, I would say. Also. So whenever I do start a TV show, like I need to know that I have enough time. So normally, like even if I don't have too much time, I won't choose anything that has more than 2 or 3 seasons because at least like it cuts you off to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you start something like Game of Thrones that has 10, 12 seasons or something like
8,
that, there's no finishing it, right? So have not dared to tackle that yet.
Well, I'll give you my personal recommendation. Only watch the first 3.
Oh,
and you're good.
Okay.
It starts getting not so great towards the end anyways. So yeah, I know what you mean. Like you need to cut yourself off and also not like dive down the rabbit hole, and then you're like stuck there and you have to just keep watching, keep binging. It's problematic. It can be.
It very much is, yes. But
That's so great.
I guess we've all found a way to entertain ourselves in quarantine because Netflix did a very good job at keeping us busy.
I know. And creative, hopefully, and inspired. Yeah. Did you find the first few months or so, was that really isolating for you, or did you find it to be like totally liberating to have your own time? Or
I mean, at first I didn't feel like it was going to last as long as it did. So I was very productive for the first, I think, 3 to 4 weeks. I pretty much sewed a new garment for myself every single day, at least one actually.
Oh, for yourself.
So my wardrobe drastically expanded.
Wow.
But afterwards I was like, oh, we are not getting back to it. I guess the momentum is slowly dying down. But yeah, it was definitely a very interesting time because I don't get to make clothes for myself too often anymore, just because when I do have time in the summer, I would prefer to be outdoors or doing something else with friends and such like that. So
away from your table.
Yeah, the ability to sew or draft a new garment, just not to even say that I don't have time. I mean, I'm sure I could make time if I really wanted to, but it just doesn't become as much of a priority as I wish that I made it, maybe.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, you make your own clothes. Wow.
I do, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I wish I could do that. I always usually buy my clothes from thrift stores anyway, so they don't really, they don't always have a specific connection to me.
Right.
They're kind of just clothes that I like looking at or something, but to make your own and to start from scratch and know that you get to wear it after, that's so personalized. And
yeah, I would. Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
I mean, I think just especially growing up and shopping a lot, I didn't find necessarily a lot of things that I felt were that not necessarily well made, but just that suited me very well. And I wanted something a little bit more edgy or a little bit more creative than a standard t-shirt, or even if it did get a little bit more creative, I always felt like there were things that I wanted to change about it. And so when I finally entered the fashion world, it was kind of a revelation to kind of put that to light and figure out how to sort of create this style that I was envisioning for myself when I was younger. And it definitely is very exciting. Even when I put on a new garment for the first time and to see it draped over my body is oh wow, that works. Or sometimes it's oh, that does not work. But you kind of learn because you kind of figure out what styles work, and it's just that learning process is just so incredibly interesting yet rewarding at the same time. So
wow,
yeah,
cool.
It's a fun process.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's stressful, but
but being able to design things that are edgy and for yourself, and you don't need to label it for the company who sometimes will work in fast fashion or something like that. That's so precious, and it also, I feel lets you just express yourself the way you want to, which
absolutely
is
I pretty much, because I am able to create what I want to kind of create the look that I want to go for, right? The sort of vibe or spirit that I want to be portraying to other people, and sort of create the visual aspect of what other people see about me. And it's kind of very empowering, I think. So.
Yeah. Well, and even with the designs that I have seen from your company, it's all so unique, and I always loved looking at the cutouts and how you would make the costume sometimes very it didn't even connect. I'm how does that go together and stay on the body? I'm
a lot of secrets.
I need to reveal. No.
But
no, magician never does.
just different like sewing methods and like
Yeah.
different like stiffeners, fasteners, those sort of things to kind of create the illusion that something like is a floating neckline or a strapless bodysuit. Like that's I think one of the styles that I think I've pretty much perfected at this point is a strapless
Cool.
bodysuit that I know no other costume designer does because it's very difficult to do, right? Like for it
Cool.
to be able to stay up with it only being strapless is a feat, but we figured out a way to basically make it stick and it does not fall off.
Wow. That's so cool.
So
Yeah, and you wrote to I just want to mention on your website like it's runway trends in both high fashion and sportswear. So you can, you have this line of dance attire for class that can be reused and wearable in any sense, but then also the costuming. And I don't know, I think that's just a dancer's dream to have the two kind of come together so that when I'm practicing, I'm also kind of wearing what I'm going to be wearing on stage.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
really
mean,
cool.
I like that like transitional piece because if you're able to take something from practice to performance, like that's key, right?
Yeah,
So
that helps a
it's
lot.
always
For
about
sure.
flexibility and versatility and just being able to um, transition from one to the other seamlessly is kind of um, I think some of the pieces that are the most sustainable yet also the most effective, right? So
Hmm.
because they're simple yet they're understated, but they're powerful enough to stand out at the same time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, I remember you showed me a design once in rehearsal, and I was just like, I've never seen this before. Like it's truly unique, and maybe that's just me and my like limited knowledge. But I think it's so unique, and I hope people will, consider you for their projects because honestly, I can give them a personal recommendation for you for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for sitting with me. This was so
oh, thank you
fun.
so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. I mean, we've always kind of seen each other in passing, so
Mhm.
to be able to have an hour of your time is very, very special for me. And come back, and hopefully we'll
I
do it
absolutely
in.
will. I'll come back anytime you want me to.
Yay! Well, hopefully we'll do it in person too. Maybe
Absolutely.
at
Yeah.
that point. If
Yeah,
you
when,
want.
when COVID is over, let's put it that way. But I'm sure we could
Hopefully.
do it before then. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hopefully a resolution comes to COVID and all of its
Yes. Fingers
virus
crossed.
particles.
Yeah. If you want to plug anything, in terms of your brand or anything at all, in terms of just, you as an artist, please go for it. The mic is yours.
Can't think of anything off the top of my head, but
That's okay.
follow, like, share, subscribe. But Wesley Tang Designs is our Instagram, so I don't really post that often because I really am not that much of a social media fiend to be consistently posting, and I
All
don't really
good.
have enough time in my day to really focus on that. So, um,
Understandable.
but there is some content there. So if you would like to see what we do and the sort of styles that we create, feel free to check it out. But otherwise, we still have a dancewear line on sale on our website. Three
Ooh.
pieces, a bodysuit, a crop top, and a pair of dance briefs, all in a basic black color with a little bit of a twist. So that's part of our standard inaugural like collection that we launched a couple years ago. Um, and that's just been some of the basic items that we've been selling.
Cool.
So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
I'll link all of that below so people can
sounds
easily
great.
access it. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. I'm so inspired by your drive and your dedication. And thank you.
No problem. Thank you for having me again. It was such a nice time to like take an hour out of my day to just chat with you and just reconnect. So,
Yes, definitely. Amidst
definitely
all of your move and glass people who take too long and stuff like that.
yes, it's still a work in progress. Let's hopefully we finish soon. But I am
Always.
a little doubtful at this point that it's going to happen. But I've already accepted the fact that the timeline is no longer in play,
Oh no.
and we're just going to take it one day at a time. So
You're gonna have to update your Excel sheet.
Oh, I will, yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording, but let's keep chatting. Thank you so much for listening to the Art Versations podcast. If you like what you heard, the best way to help the podcast is to subscribe or follow on your preferred podcast platform and leave a review. As well, follow the podcast on Instagram at artversationspod. You'll find photos of each of my guests so you can match a voice to a face and highlight clips from each episode. Let's keep the conversation going. Send in a DM with your own thoughts about art, as well as any questions you think I should ask my guests. The podcast community continues to grow, and that is all because of you, listener. All bodies are dancer bodies, and all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. Till next time.
My name is Broadway Classic.
Let's hear it.